Good morning, my lovely community. I think it's still morning, I'm not sure. Justice Bartlett here, your Bedhead Mystic. I I was feeling some apprehension, anxiety, something in my body when I woke up this morning, and that's kind of uncommon for me right now. It's kind of common. It's sort of shifting and waffling back and forth. And we hear so much in the world about self-care and how to do it and what it is and how it's so important, and um, what people don't understand is when you're in like a real state of almost decomposition, even doing really basic things for yourself can feel really hard. So I wanted to kind of make a video and share a live from a completely different state. Like, I literally just got out of the shower. I'm gonna talk to you as I walk through my routine and just see what kind of comes up, because I think it is important to tend to the inner as well as the outer. I I think that our appearances to ourselves and others, first impressions, matter. I think that is just, it's like the cover, it's like the window dressing, it's like the cover of the book or the window dressing of the cafe. Like, if you don't resonate with what you first see with someone, you may not go deeper, you may not be motivated to. So I'm going to tend to my window dressing while I talk to you, and while we kind of go over through some different nuances of what self-care is. Oh hell. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my contacts so that if anybody pops up as I'm on this live, I'll be able to see your comments and interact with you, because I really love that. That's one of the reasons that I've cultivated the community that I have here on social media, is that I love our interactions. And particularly over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of enforced isolation, and a lot of us have really learned to lean on each other here in social media land. So I appreciate your presence and existence, and I would appreciate my contact lens behaving itself. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Clear vision is certainly one of the key components of self-care, and clear vision is one of the reasons why when we're in a funk, when we're depressed, when we're anxious, when we're going through like what I called it, like a major state of decomposition or reconfiguring, why when we're in that state, god damn it, it can be really helpful, it can be really beneficial to call on a coach, a mentor, a healer, a good friend, even in instances, someone who can help reflect reality back to us, because we can easily get stuck in a sort of very self-biased, isolationist reality loop where we're not seeing ourselves clearly, we're not seeing our life clearly, we're not seeing our circumstances clearly. And when we're not seeing ourselves, our lives, or our circumstances clearly, we limit our accessibility to different options, to different possibilities, because we've essentially kind of narrowed down our energetic and emotional bandwidth. But in that state, we go into a deeper state of trance where we reinforce our experience with narratives that reinforce the deeper feeling, and the deeper feeling gets locked in and stagnant, which kind of keeps the narratives going. So clarity of self actually completely requires other human beings. Hi Gwyneth, beautiful woman, nice to see you this morning. So What do I do next with my morning routine? I must tend to my hair. I like being a woman. I can't remember ever not like being a woman. That doesn't mean that I liked my body. That doesn't mean that I felt at ease in my skin. I can't remember ever wanting to be anything other than like female. It sits with me. It sits well with me. I've certainly had my share of objectification, abuse, stalking, all the things that also often tend to go along with being female. And I will say, like, I think there's a place for vanity. I think there's an absolute place in all of us, male and female, for adoration of our physicality and our appearance. As I already said, like, it's the window dressing. If we don't tend to that, it sends a message that we don't care as much about ourselves, and it sends that message also gets translated that maybe we're not actually really capable about caring about others. And I'm not talking about like false eyelashes and like the performative face of care. I'm talking about having things that you do with your body that establish a sense of ritual and care for yourself, whatever that might be. And it's the activity of it that actually translates more than like the final product. It's love is an action, right? So self-love is also an action. So self-care is an action. So it requires ritual. It requires activity to bring it into the physical. For me, one of the things that I've done lately is I've learned a lot more about how to take care of my curly hair. And this is one of the things we do. Apparently it's called plopping. Stick a bunch of product in it, tie it up in a t-shirt so it doesn't frazz the curls out. It's very, it's like the 1930s turban look, except for I've got flaps today, which is kind of fun and fantastic. Self-care, as the basic sort of physical ritual within it is also, it's how we show ourselves, and we demonstrate that, like, we appreciate what we've been born with, For so long when I was young, I felt like my hair was too frizzy, I was too tall, my boobs were too big. Like, I felt awkward and I physically hurt growing into my body. I had vicious growing pains from the time I was like probably 11 or younger till I was at least 14, when it kind of started evening out. But I'm 5'9". I would say right now I probably weigh close to 170 pounds. And that's actually within the range of like where I should be for my body mass index. I can't believe I'm just telling everybody in public this, but I'm okay with it. It has taken me nearly 40 years to grow into my body. I'll be 42 this year. And growing up, like, I wanted to be tan, I wanted to be thin, I wanted to look like Cindy Crawford because I was a kid of the 90s, and she was the top model in the 90s, right? So I put Sun-In in my hair, which is already blonde. I would put baby oil on my skin, and we would lay out on top of our tin trailers. And like, I'm lucky that I'm not just like covered in skin cancer because I wrecked my skin. So now I'm learning, I've learned to love the skin that I'm in. Like, this is one of the biggest things of self-care. For me as a woman, it's finding products that I like. Like, I like the balmy stuff. I like really clean stuff. Like, my typical thought process at this point with skincare, with makeup is if I don't want to put it in my, if I wouldn't want to eat it, then I probably shouldn't put it on my skin, because we absorb straight through our skin, like almost like through the blood-brain barrier. Like it comes in so quickly. So this is my Burt's Bees balm for everything. I like them. They feel like a pretty good company to me. And like, it's not about like nitpicking, you know? It's about like, we look in the mirror and we see what we see. Like, what do I see today? I see that, like, I see my sleep is not as deep and restorative and restful as it sometimes is. I can tell in the way that my skin looks, and that's okay. I can tell by looking at my face, by looking at my skin, I'm a little dehydrated. I need to drink more water today. I'm taking in, by looking at myself, the things that I actually need to do to take care of myself. Because when we look, we see. And like I said earlier, if we're not seeing ourselves correctly, that's when we need a little help. Like, I would say I had probably a pretty hefty amount of body dysmorphia for most of my life. I was just saying how when I was, you know, young, I had it felt too tall, too fat, too booby, too frizzy, like all the things that my body just naturally is. It was just too much. And I didn't necessarily get that reinforcement from the outside world. My mom was like, "You're not a Cindy Crawford, you're a Marilyn Monroe. Like, embrace your curves and your pale skin and all that you have." And I'm like, I hate it, I hate it, I hated it, I hated it, right? That I wasn't seeing myself clearly, and I had this dysmorphia for a really long time. And my friend Mina Bass, we did a photo shoot when I was in my 30s. And we did some real, like, some beautiful boudoir poses, and we did some real kind of Marilyn-esque type shots. And it, like, after I saw those pictures developed, I saw myself in a different light. I saw myself more clearly than I ever had. And I was like, oh, okay, like, maybe maybe there isn't as much here, like, wrong, you know? We get so caught up with, like, comparing ourselves to these different standards of beauty or these different standards of success. So aside from seeing ourselves clearly and being willing to look and take in what we see, what we actually feel about ourselves when we look, like, the next really big thing with self-care and, like, self-compassion is not comparing ourselves. Like, if I compare myself to a 5'5" model who, you know, wears a size 4 and has long brown hair, I am never going to feel sufficient. Like, if that's the current standard of beauty, like Kate Moss was like the ragged, like, orphan waif look. Like, do I look a fucking thing like Kate Moss? No, our beauty, our internality, our values, like, our worth, it has to be claimed independently and free of comparison from anyone else. And that's an internal state. That's a physical state of existence. That's also, like, when it comes to the way that we go about, like, pursuing and achieving our goals and dreams, it also relates to that, because I've learned, you know, this buzzword. Here's my face stuff. 1,000 rose petals in every bottle. Oh my God, and it smells so good and it feels amazing. And it's like, just soothing on my skin. So, what was I going to say? This new buzzword being neurodivergent as a means of kind of encompassing people who have ADD, ADHD, who are maybe a little bit on the autistic spectrum. For a lot of us who have grown up with different traumas and PTSD and CPTSD, that last one definitely identifies me as well. I have to I have to measure my goals and accomplishments in a way that is actually sustainable and compatible with what my nervous system can do and what it can handle. Because I have a tendency towards neurological overwhelm, and I've only really kind of learned this about myself in the last couple of years. So self-care is also, it is understanding the way that we function, being compassionate about the way that we function, and then learning how we can move within those parameters to meet and achieve our goals in a sustainable way. Because I'll do this thing, like, I've been transparent, with like my history of addiction. Like, when I first started writing for Elephant Journal, I got obsessed. I wrote morning, noon, and night. Like, I just pumped out articles. And not only was I pumping out articles, I had a geek crush on the editor-in-chief, Waylon Lewis. And I was in all the groups commenting on all the articles. And like, I just went balls to the wall with it. And I sustained that for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. That was sustainable for me. And then I backed off. And like, probably at 8 months, I had Waylon starting to write me and being like, are you okay? Like, where did you go? And I had to be like, and that was right when the pandemic hit. And like, it wasn't sustainable. So I love writing, right? It's one of my passions. I don't feel like I'm caring for myself if I'm not tending to myself creatively as well. So it's not just about like putting the things on the face, right? Choosing the clothing. Like, what are our passions? What makes us feel alive? Like, I feel wildly alive when I write, and particularly when I get glowing appreciation or even scathing, like, I like, this is how I'm wired. I like the vitriol just as well when it comes to sharing my writing and my creativity, because I don't take it personally. I don't take anything that comes from the greater population really personally. You have to be within my intimate circle, like someone who I'm allowing into my body, or someone who I'm intimately connected with, for me to take the criticism as like something that feels really like personal, not necessarily destabilizing, potentially so, but people who want to tell me that I'm a witch and that like my whole idea about spirituality is twisted and black and evil. Like, oh, all right, okay, good, thanks. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for caring. Gwyneth says, I feel similar. I know something is up when I'm not writing or dancing. Yeah, that's me to a T. And the dancing, oof, the dancing. That reminds me, like, I need to put on some music. I need to dance. It makes me happy. So, but it's also like I have to watch, like, letting myself get to a manic state with everything doesn't feel very caring. It feels exciting. It feels enthusiastic. It reproduces similar feelings of euphoria and excitement from like my childhood, but then also later on in life from like being a meth addict. And I've realized, like particularly in the last few months with the pattern and the pathway of anxiety, like, it's so fucking addictive. Oh my God. The rumination and like the underlying feeling of needing resolution and ruminating to generate resolution with a feeling and a sensation that's probably been in my body since I was 3 years old, younger, like possibly pre-verbal. Like, oh, hey, that's not actually gonna work. Like, fucking goddamn it. But when we have these big significant events, rumination is a process that we use to try to make sense of it, especially if we're sorting through it on our own and we don't have the advantage of being able to communicate with another person who may have been involved. Rumination is one of the tools that we use to try to make sense of our experiences. But if you have anxiety, if you have underlying potentially lifelong, like CPTSD induced or chronic anxiety, the rumination, it feeds that. I recently, I get so much, and this is why, I need to sleep, because I get so much, I get fed so deeply from my dream world. I had this dream that I was with my lover, and there was this weird female attachment with me, and he and I were together, and I was, looking at it and feeling grossed out by it, and I was like, why do you put up with it? And he was like, I'm just trying to be nice to it. And I was like, oh, okay. Do I be nice to it? What do I do with it? And over the course of the last month or so, I've seen it as this non-actual, it's not actually me. And this is we have to be so discerning and so compassionate when we're doing these internal parts work, because if you know anything about me and the way that I work, I'm 100% in opposition to any slaying or slaughtering or hacking apart or even suppression of our ego. It doesn't work, and it's violent. And there are some components of our psyche that are either not us or that are us and have lived out their functionality and have run out of vitality and are particularly, maybe specifically draining our vitality from other areas. And sometimes those parts need to die. So I acknowledge this part as something that was parasitic, that was identifying as me, that was not me. And I could see it sort of lying on this beach of this lake, and I realized every time I went into guilt and rumination, I was feeding it. Actually saw myself going up and feeling so sorry for it, and here, have another sip, and it would grow stronger, and I'd be like, fuck, this is the exact opposite of what needs to be happening right now. And so I've had to hold myself in that deep feeling, that anxiety of needing to do something, and sit with the feelings inside of myself and sit with this image of this, it's very, if you guys remember Harry Potter in the last movie, how Voldemort had essentially turned him into a Horcrux. And then when he finally had his big final battle with Voldemort, that part of him had to die. That was how it was. It was something parasitic that was partially me, but partially not. And sometimes the most caring thing that we can do is we let things die. Sometimes we assist in the death of things specifically because that death is the most compassionate thing to do. And now to turn momentarily to our current events. Sometimes, this is the whole thing that encapsulates this conversation around abortion and whether or not it's right or wrong. It is only right or wrong for the one being who is responsible for holding, containing, growing, and nurturing that life. And that is really only one being. Can a woman have a partner who is involved in that? Yes. She have family who's involved in that, community who's involved in that, God, please, hopefully, yes. But the actual act of bringing that forth into the world, that's on her. That's her resources. That's her psyche in relationship with that experience. That's her relationship to the divine, if she has one, or not if she doesn't. And that's her relationship with what would be that being or what will not. And she's the only one who can make that decision. There are processes, and this is why it's the attack on abortion it's also telling us that we don't have the right to cut out certain processes that are not appropriate for us in our lives. And abortion as a as a psychological developmental process, not just the physical activity, it's so important. It's crucial that we be able to occasionally, when necessary, abort creations that we don't want to give any more life force to. Not just the physical act of it, the psychological, the emotional, the relational component as well. This is the other thing to please take into consideration right now. And this is why, regardless of whatever crappy legislation comes down, this is a sacred process that cannot actually be taken away from us. So who puts mascara on like this, right? This is how we do it. There can be no talking unless you stab yourself in the eye. The tongue is extremely important for concentration. We all know this. I think if I were allowed to keep one, right? You have to do it. And you can't talk when you're putting on, Gwyneth says, yep, mouth open. No idea why, but it works. It does work. It works well. And then watch, we're going to do the other one, so it's like complete silence again. If I were only allowed one makeup item, skincare excluded, it would be mascara. Because, like, hi, I have eyes, like, all of a sudden, like, they pop out of my extremely pale face. It's so wonderful. Okay, so, face done, kind of steamy. Now we get to see the hair. I think, so we talked about, like, being willing to see, being willing to have others see. Touch is such an important function of self-care. And we have to slow down to really actually enjoy and appreciate touch. Like, really slow down. Whether we're slowing down with ourselves and, like, I learned the difference, like, just for a little example, that it makes a huge difference in the shape of my curls if I scrunch slowly and intentionally versus kind of just flipping, just kind of ripping my fingers through my hair. This is one of the ways I think too that we can be reminded that the body is a temple, right? And like, why living ritual that involve the body, why that matters so much. Because it's not mental. It's not performative. It's like, okay, I'm slowing down. I'm taking care of my body. Really, I'm being present with each activity. Takes me a minute to put on deodorant because it's all this like stupid natural stuff that you have to like multiple strokes, right? Slowing down. Getting out of the steamy bathroom. Breathing. Look at my lovely window. It's also taking care of our environment. One of the basic things I've heard for people who do get depression is that, the thing that we need to do is get up, first and foremost, obviously, at least at some point. Take a shower, not a bath, kind of invigorate ourselves. Clean something, drink water, eat something, perform some sort of task. Little basic bites and steps. Bing! I'm gonna wait to get dressed. I'm still too steamy. The other thing that is like fundamental for self-care is boundaries. So I've done everything now to kind of prepare my body to deal with the world. I've claimed myself, aside from putting on clothes, which is like the very last thing that I will ever do before I leave my house, because come on, hello. But boundaries, and boundaries, they start clearly we can make a distinction, like this is my physical body where I begin and end. But then there are the boundaries for how we engage with ourselves internally. I was just giving you an example of like refusing to feed this little sort of rumination, guilt, hungry part of myself inside of me anymore. That's a boundary I'm holding. I'm not going to feed it. It's hard. It's a habit. Most addictions are sourced in a lack of boundaries of all kinds. Primarily sourced in a lack of boundaries of all kinds. It is, valuing ourselves as separate and individual to know where we begin and end, and where others begin and end, and what we need and what we're responsible for within ourselves, and then how we can graciously hold other people to those agreements. One of the things that bugs me about boundaries is I see it associated with a lot of door slamming and fence building and like bridge burning. That's my least favorite one. You have people you need out of your life. I have matches. We write it done. Okay, Pyro, like settle the fuck down. Like it's a door. You can close it. You can lock it. You can open it. That became particularly relevant, when I began to renegotiate a relationship with my father after no contact for 4 years. I felt so grateful that neither of us had done anything to burn that bridge. We had stepped away. I wasn't sure if I would ever, and I like to look at it instead of like burning a bridge, like what if the bridge is a drawbridge? What if I can lower it and I can come across it halfway and I can decide if I want to be there? And there's a moat, and there's all these different kind of layers and machinations that need to be negotiated for me to decide how I want to show up in someone's world or how I want them to show up in mine. But the burning of bridges is it's a little bit violent. There are very few causes where a bridge needs to really truly be burned. Usually pulling up the drawbridge is a much safer and saner kind of method of going about that. And that can look like all kinds of different things. That can look like no contact. That can look like, usually, like the most basic thing is learning how to negotiate conflict, disappointment, and expectations with other people in a way that allows for everybody to feel seen and heard. That would really be the most kind of basic, like functional form of boundaries. Like slamming doors and burning bridges is like a last straw. So this morning my boundary, because I'm used to living alone. I've been living alone for like 4 years now, and I really like it. It suits me, and I have my whole family staying with me for the last couple of months, and I love them, and I'm losing my mind. I'm going a little crazy. I woke up this morning, as I said, feeling anxious, and the first thing I had to do was come out and like make coffee with somebody else in my space, which I don't like to do necessarily. I like my quiet time. And then somebody was about to turn on the TV at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I had to be like, not in the morning, not here, not in my ritual. That's not happening. Because you may be living with me, but it's still my fucking space. Like, I'm concerned for these other humans and needs, but I cannot be concerned for their needs in a way that I feel that I'm betraying mine, or that I'm increasing my own anxiety, my anxiety is increasing at the expense of their comfort. No. How do you say that? Their comfort is, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that my anxiety cannot pay the price for their comfort. That can't be a thing. And I have to manage that. I have to manage that internally and externally. It's a constant act of being attentive and being self-caring. Alright, let me think. Anything else? I think that's a pretty good run. I don't know how long we've been talking, but feels like a nice morning check-in. If anybody has any thoughts or comments you want to share before I sign off, I'm going to make breakfast next because it's almost noon, and that's typically when I eat. I get up in the morning and I have heavy cream and honey in my dark coffee. I've recently started throwing in a collagen supplement because I'm now of that age where collagen's a fucking thing, I guess. and then I eat right around now. So I hope there's something of benefit here for you guys who joined in. It made me happy to see your comments, Gwyneth, and who else said hi? Oh, Carol, hi. Yeah, everybody that said hi, that makes me happy. I hope this has been beneficial for you. If you're looking for one-on-one mentoring support, you can find me at bedheadmystic.com. Jenny, good morning. Hello, dear. Nice to see you. Jennifer Beth, I'm glad this was beneficial for you. Thank you for saying hi. I mean, we can hang out and make breakfast with you if you want to. What else can I tell you? I'm getting back to doing the Way of Womb meetings for women. We'll talk about self-care. We'll talk about current events. We'll talk about our past and current stories. We'll do a little bit of body-based meditation and ritual, all in these online meetings. The group that you can request to become a part of is called The Way of Womb, Myths and Stories, Women's Myths and Stories, something like that. I'll drop the link. You can find me and my content, like lots of articles, at elephantjournal.com/Justice Bartlett. I just started a Substack, so I'll drop a link for that as well. And if you, I'm gonna try a membership out where I'm going to try to build in kind of a coaching container with what I'm offering on Substack content-wise. And I'm trying to, as a means of devotion and self-care both to myself and my community and the people who benefit from my support, I'm trying to deepen my commitment with putting out beneficial content. So I'm going to do more lives. I'm going to put out more articles. I'm going to be making more videos and YouTubes. If you're interested in following my work, thank you. It means so much to me. If you're interested in sharing anything that I've put out that you found beneficial or that you think someone you know might find beneficial, thank you. That means so much to me. Jenny says, is there any possibility of doing the meeting 2 times a week or possibly rotating times from one week to another? I will take that into consideration because that is a possibility. There's always all kinds of ways to negotiate and get what we want when we ask. So thank you for asking. Okay. Thanks for playing with me, for getting ready with me. Never done anything like that before, but it was fun. Until next time, be good to yourselves and each other.